activity-based costing is a great way to begin to understand pricing. We're going to use a simplified example in a spreadsheet and dig a bit deeper to really get into this topic, and just really looking at 4 items: staff, which is your people or your employees, rent, technology, and utilities. So with this, we're going to start with people, and we have here a given bit of information: 5 staff at $15 an hour. So we'll begin to construct our budget here. So we have 5 staff at $15 an hour at 8 hours in a day at 5 days in a week at, for budgetary reasons, 52 weeks in a year. Even though when we calculate capacity, we'll figure it on 50 weeks in a year, because we're going to assume that they have 2 weeks of paid vacation. So taking a look, that's $156,000. For rent, that's 12 months at $4,000 a month. For technology, we're going to assume 12 months at $2,000 a month. And utilities, the same thing at 12 months at $2,000. We have a total budget of $252,000. To give an idea of which items occupy how much of the budget, we're going to simply divide that item by our total. I'm going to make these absolute cell references to make it just a little bit easier and get an idea of where we are. We'll clean up this with our bottom border. So we have 100% of the budget allocated. A great deal of it is to people, and you'll see that in service environments that a great deal of the budget really is reflected in people costs. So when we figure up the total staff capacity, that's going to be slightly different than that because we base it on the 50 weeks in a year, but we have 5 people times 8 hours in a day times 60 minutes in an hour times 5 days in a week times the 50 weeks in a year, and that's going to give us a total of 600,000 minutes available. So we're going to set this aside just for a minute and go back to some of our given information, that we have 30,000 members, 50,000 reservations, and 5,000 problems that must be solved. And some of this is reflected here as well. So as we look at this, we did a bit of a study to understand what people are really spending their time doing. And simply by observing them and timing them, we discovered that it took 2 minutes to take a reservation. It took 6 minutes to take a payment. It took 1.5 minutes to get an account balance. Resolving an issue took quite a while and was often highly variable, but we put it at 12 minutes, and changing a reservation only took 3 minutes. Now we're going to calculate how much each of these costs. And we know that we pay them $15 an hour, and we know that it takes 2 minutes to do it. So we're going to do a little bit of math here and understand exactly what each one costs us. So first step is we want to divide $15 by the amount of time that it takes. So 60 minutes in an hour divided by 2 minutes, and it's 50 cents. So if we do that for each of these, we have an idea of exactly what everything costs in terms of actually performing the operation if we want to assign a cost to it. We also have a good idea, given the number of transactions and the time it takes, of how much we spend doing that in a given year. So if we have 50,000 transactions and each of them takes 2 minutes, we know that that's how much time it's going to take us if we were to do them all back to back in a whole year. We also want to go ahead and add these up, and we're going to clean it up. And as we think about what our total capacity is, we know what that is, so let's figure out how much of our capacity this actually uses. And again, we want to use absolute cell references here, and we'll extend it down and sum it. So if we take a look, we see some pretty interesting figures begin to emerge. First off, the thing that jumps out right off the bat is that this right here, we spend a great deal of capacity on this. such that really we have a total capacity usage of 84%, almost 85%. And we know that in the service environment, in any environment really, you shouldn't really plan to occupy people at 100%. People have to get up and take breaks. They have to use the bathroom. They drink coffee. They move around. They have staff training events. There's things that go on in the workplace that really prohibit us from scheduling people at 84 or really 100%. So as we look at this, we're really running at nearly full capacity, this, considering it's a service operation. When we look at this single item, and when we begin to understand that this is a lot of time, that as we take a look at this, we could understand that if we could change the technology here to do it differently, this fundamental task that we do a lot of, if we could do it more efficiently, more effectively, we could transform things. So take a look again before I change it, 45% and 84%. And we're going to change this so that it only takes half a minute instead of the prior time to do this. That we have a dramatic change in terms of how much capacity we now have and how much time this takes. And this was done by changing the technology, by implementing broadband technology on their desktop computers instead of having them get up, walk around, and use a dial-up credit card machine that's very time-consuming and really not very customer-friendly. So now as a result, we've achieved a dramatic increase in our capacity. We can operate far more profitably. We can operate far more effectively. We could potentially operate with fewer staff, or we can have those staff doing other things and they're freed up to resolve problems or really give great customer service.